Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video, and this is another basketball reaction, and this is part 2 of what I done reacted to yesterday. Obviously I'm reacting to this straight after, but I'm going to post a video a day after as well. But just know I'm literally doing this 2 minutes after I've done the last video. And if you're seeing this part first, make sure you go and see part 1, just so you sort of understand basically this part, because again it's part 2, so it's going to be like jumping straight into another top 5 to 10, not number 1 to 5. But for the people who are seeing it, this video is the 10 greatest against all odds stories in the NBA today, part 2. And part 1 was really, really inspirational, man. I really enjoyed it. Something a bit different, but I tell you what, man, stories like that are genuinely like a really good, just makes you appreciate how much they've had to work for it. And in some cases, they've had to work like 10 times, 20 times harder than anyone else. I mean, you have to respect it, man. And I like how it's not just all... So there's some cases of players being seen as too small or not as skilled enough, or it's also cases of people growing up in really like low income families or low income countries, etc., and just sort of having to struggle their way to the top. And it's all these different stories. It's not all similar stuff. It's all like just random, but it's really nice to see. And yo, this is part 2, man. I'm excited to see who else could be in this, but hopefully you guys enjoy. And yeah, let's just get into it.
Just how bad his hometown was. When he got confronted by 3 men while walking home after practice, he stood tall, ready to defend himself, until one of them put a gun to his forehead. So this is where part 1 ended off, on Damian Lillard's against all odds story. If you haven't seen it, click the first link in the description to watch it first. But to carry on with his story, he ended up giving up his wallet, and luckily the 3 guys let him go. But this just goes to show the kind of area he grew up in and why he fears nothing today. Back on the court though, even when he made it to a Division I school like he wanted, he only finished high school as a 2-star recruit. So when he got to Weber State, Damian Lillard took that work ethic, and by the end of his 4 years there, he went from a 2-star recruit to averaging 24, 5, and 4, and being known as the top point guard prospect in the 2012 NBA draft.
Wow.
Proving everyone wrong who ever doubted him when he finally made it to the league against all odds. And even though he's finally made it, he still carries that mindset with him today when he doesn't make an all-star team, an all-NBA team, or is thought of as an underdog in the playoffs. Number 6,
what a great personality
John
to
Wall.
have, man.
In my opinion, Wall is the most moving story in the NBA. And here's why. Because just 3 weeks after his first birthday, his father robbed a convenience store, and because of that and his previous run-ins with the law, he was forced to serve the next 7 years in jail.
Oh, wow.
Within that time, the Wall family would make the 2-hour drive every single weekend to visit him. And on one of those visits, John's dad sat him down and had a long talk to him about how he needed to be a better person than he was, and how he had to take care of his family and his mother like a real man. Something his dad wasn't ever able to do. And then one day when John Wall was 8, his father was finally released from prison. And almost right away, the family packed up the car and went out to a cabin for a family vacation. It was the first time in John's life that he got to spend time with his dad with no restrictions from prison guards. He said it was some of the...
That must have been something for like him personally, because he's grown up his whole life basically like, from 1 year old. Obviously, when you're 1, you're not going to remember like the memories. That's crazy when you think about that. The first time you spend real time with your dad is when you're 8, and that's out of anyone's real control. Bro, that is insane.
Best days of his life. But on the last day of the trip, his father got sick, and they learned that he was only released from prison because he was terminally ill with liver cancer. And the time they spent in the water on that trip infected his wounds. So his dad was rushed to the hospital, and the rest of the family was rushed home. And then a few days later, John overheard his mom on the phone say that his dad passed away. So he ran...
Bro, that is awful. That is so... Oh, mate, that is such an awful sort of story. Oh, mate, so you've just basically been able to see your dad properly and spend time with him properly, and oh, man. God, that is really, really deep. Bro, that is crazy.
Outside and cried for hours. But just to make things worse, at the funeral, his older brother promised to step up and take care of the family. But just a year later, he got locked up for the next nearly 20 years. And this is when John's attitude and his life really changed. because even though he would show signs of becoming a phenomenal athlete and a basketball player, he was known as a bad kid and a criminal by everyone he knew. He'd cuss out his teammates, steal cars, break windows, and get in a lot of trouble for the rest of his teenage years. And even by the time he'd make it to high school, on the court he'd yell at teammates who didn't pass him the ball, or coaches that tried to tell him what to do. And when they would refuse to play him, he'd sit on the end of the bench and eat snacks while the rest of the game went on. And this attitude led to him getting kicked out of a lot of camps, and coaches trying to tell him the hard truth that he should be getting recruited by big colleges like Duke and North Carolina, but that was never going to happen with his attitude. And as the years went on, there would be certain instances where a coach would actually make a small difference in his attitude. But nothing changes his life more than when his mother spent her last $200 she had for him to go to an AAU tournament and let her electricity get shut off for the next 2 days. John said, if my mom was going to do that for me, I was going to do everything I could to give her a better life. Which really changed his outlook on life and led to him working harder than ever before and quickly rising up the ranks to being the #1 high school basketball player in America. He then went on to go play 1 year at Kentucky before going first overall in the 2010 NBA draft. And then right after that, he bought his mom a 7-bedroom house, and in an open letter to ESPN, told his dad, "Dad, I know you're proud of the man I've become. We never had the opportunity to interact like a father and son should, but I've taken care of my mom and the family just like you told me." He went on to write that when he becomes a father, he's going to share his dad's story with his children and let them know that every generation can be better than the last, and that he's living proof of that. And John had his first child in December of 2018, so this is a story that his kid's going to be hearing in a few years too. Number 7.
My God, that was probably one of the most touching one, probably the most touching one I've seen out of all of these. That was really, really sad. Like that, like you sort of, when I heard like that his dad came out finally and they can spend time together, and then that happens. That is, as a kid as well, man. But fair play to him turning it around, and obviously this video, or these 2 parts, are just going to show about how important the people you surround yourself with are as well, like the coaches, etc., or your parents, and all these things. It's really like makes you appreciate how important they really are. But yo, that was really, really crazy. That one.
Jeremy Lin. The Linsanity story will always be one of the best stories of a player being made overnight by making the most out of the opportunity they were given. And here's how it started. Lin's parents started out living in Taiwan before he was born. And the 2 main reasons that his father wanted to move to America were to finish his PhD and to watch more NBA basketball. And by the time that he moved here, he had never played the game, but eventually studied players and taught himself, and eventually taught Jeremy Lin once he was born. And he ended up doing a great job because he was a standout in high school, but he felt that he never got the respect he deserves because of his race, which led to him not getting a single D1 scholarship offer, except for one that he got from Harvard, who let him play but didn't give him a scholarship. And he played great there, putting up 17 a game on great shooting numbers and over 2 steals a game his last 2 years there, but went undrafted in the 2010 NBA draft. Lin said that the pre-draft workouts were never 5-on-5, and they were all either 1-on-1, 2-on-2, or 3-on-3. And he said that he had never played basketball like that before, which is why he felt that things went so bad for him. Scouts that were there even went on to say that he's a smart passer, but had a flawed jump shot and a thin frame, might not have the strength and athleticism to defend, create his own shot, or finish at the rim in the NBA. But the man would still go on to have an impressive performance in the NBA Summer League, and end up getting a 2-year offer from his hometown Warriors team. And this made him the first American-born Chinese player, which led to him getting similar attention to what Yao Ming got, but on a smaller scale. He would have groups of fans at home and away games cheer him every night and every time he stepped on the floor. He would have people always looking to make documentaries of his story, and would get as many interview requests as Steph Curry. But he never let this get to him, because then Warriors coach Keith Smart said that Lin always arrived to practice early and left late, and would spend all of his free time studying Steve Nash, because he said, neither of us are freak athletes, but we're both effective and know how to play the game. Now this work ethic that he has didn't make a difference right away, because on the Warriors he only played 29 games and averaged 2 points a game, before eventually getting waived at the start of next season when Mark Jackson took over as head coach. But in that offseason, he trained harder than ever before, using the criticism that those pre-draft scouts gave him as motivation, and changed his jump shot that he had used since the 8th grade, got stronger by almost doubling the amount he could squat, tripling the amount of pull-ups he could do, gaining 15 pounds of muscle, and raising his vertical by 3.5 inches. And then on December 27th, when Iman Shumpert went out for the Knicks due to injury, Jeremy Lin was claimed off of waivers by the Knicks, and Linsanity began. Number 8, Caleb.
That's a pretty cool one. I like that how he sort of, because he was saying about before he wasn't like what was the word? Like him and Steve Nash, he wasn't like an extreme athlete. So I'm guessing that means he wasn't like exceptional in certain things. But then he like went to the gym basically. But more than that, of course. Like he improved himself in every aspect. And that's a cool little story. It's a bit different, but I do really appreciate how that was sort of formed.
Swanigan isn't too known across the league, but he's definitely battled a lot to get there. And it started when he was born while his dad was addicted to drugs. His mother had 6 children. His father's side of the family had always battled with obesity. And to show how serious it actually is, his father passed away in 2014 from complications with diabetes. And at the time he passed, he was 6'8" and close to 500 pounds. And it's turned out to be something Caleb's had to deal with since he was a kid. Because by the 8th grade, he was 6'2" and 360 pounds. And you might think it would be easy for him to just go on a diet, but since his family was so poor, they usually couldn't afford it. In fact, they were so poor that by the time he was 13, Caleb Swanigan had lived in 5 different homeless shelters and gone to 13 different schools. And it was around this time that Caleb's older brother basically saved his life by getting him into basketball. When he called...
God, so he got into, I say late, I mean, he got it, when I think of basketball, like NBA players, I always think, they played since they were literally like 1 or 2, but some starting a bit later. Right? It does blow my mind, but it makes me like think, wow, you know what? Fair play for working that hard from that point on.
His former AAU coach to get him on the team. And not only did Roosevelt Barnes let him play, he adopted him and raised him as his own son, and providing him better food to get his weight down. And through the help of his new guardian, he became an elite high school player, becoming a top 20 national prospect, putting up 22 and 13, and even graduated a year early because he did so good academically. And by the time that he graduated, he had grown to 6'8", but managed to bring his weight all the way down to 260 pounds. He would go on to go to Purdue and break out in his sophomore season, which led to him entering the NBA draft the next year, where he was picked up 26 overall by the Portland Trail Blazers. At first, it really looked like Swanigan was on a path that would have made him end up like his father. But ever since Roosevelt Barnes adopted him, he's never really struggled with his weight that bad again, and has turned his life around to making it into the NBA. Number 9,
that is a really cool
Dwayne Wade was born in a bad part of Chicago. But to make it even worse, he was born when his mother was only 18 and already had 2 kids. And to make it even worse...
So he had 2 brothers, he had 2 siblings, and his mom was 18, so they must have struggled hard.
Worse than that, when he was 4 months old, his parents got divorced and his mother was given custody. To get an idea of how bad a neighborhood Wade grew up in, when he was still young, he had already seen bodies in dumpsters and police raids. And to make his situation even worse than that, was the fact that his mother had gotten addicted to drugs. And Wade said he even saw his mom take them when he was a kid. And because of this, one of those police raids was in his own home when he was 6 years old.
So being a kid and experiencing all that, and he's 6 at this point, and he's already experienced all these things. I can't begin to imagine how that must have affected him.
Dwayne Wade turned 8. His older sister told him they were going to the movies, but instead took him to go live with his father who lived close by. And a year would pass, and his dad would take Wade and move his new family away from his mother to Robbins, Illinois. And once Wade stopped seeing his mom, over the next 10 years, her problems just got much worse, and she'd constantly be in and out of jail. But to get away from all the and violence going on, Wade used football and basketball. And he really thanks his older sister for basically raising him and bringing him down the path of sports. And then by the time D-Wade got to high school, even though he was a star in football, his true passion was basketball. So in his first 2 years on the varsity basketball team, he struggled to really get any playing time, but that wasn't until Wade grew 4 inches in the summer before his junior year, went on to average 20 and 7 as a junior, and then 27 and 11 the next year as a senior. But even though he had gotten extremely talented, only 3 colleges recruited him because his grades were so bad.
Oh, wow. That's wild. So the grades are really important, I guess, because I mean, obviously, if you don't get the grades and you don't make it in basketball, where else are you going to go? So I find that pretty like smart from US sports, how you have to get the grades, or you have to get high enough grades, because if you don't make it in the sport, you've got other options and it's going to be very hard to make it in the NBA.
Marquette University. Because of his poor grades though, he had to sit out his freshman year, but did come out as a sophomore and put up 17, 6, and 3, and then 21, 6, and 4 as a junior, and led his team to the Final Four, where he had really made himself into a star. D-Wade's mom declared to change her life and get clean, but when Wade went back to visit her, she confessed that she was heading back to jail for 14 months. But then Wade would forego his senior season to enter the 2003 NBA draft. And thankfully, it's said that his mom has been able to stay clean ever since then. Through the help of a few select people, against all odds, Dwyane Wade made it out of a bad neighborhood with a mother who couldn't get her life together, to then making it into the league and helping his mom finally get things right in her life. Number 10, Joel Embiid. Joel grew up in Cameroon, Africa, and his path from there to being one of the NBA league and helping his mom finally get things right in her life. Number 10, Joel Embiid. Joel grew up in Cameroon, Africa.
Oh,
and his path from there to being one of the NBA's top players is one of the most remarkable you'll see. Because growing up in Africa, he loved the NBA, but he said that he could barely ever watch it because his mom made him focus so much on school that he never had time. In fact, his mom made him stay home and study so much that he never had time to play any sports. But by the time the man was 16, he was 6'10". So because of this, Cameroonian-born current NBA player Luc Mbah a Moute invited him to his basketball camp, where Embiid said that he was so nervous on the first day that he didn't even show up. But the second day, even though he was terrible, his adrenaline took over.
So what they're saying, he basically started properly playing the sport at 16?
And he threw down a mean dunk on somebody. And this led to Luke seeing potential in him and brought him to his Basketball Without Borders camp. And then just like that, 2 months later he was on a plane to go to Florida for high school basketball. And what a huge life change that's got to be in a 3-month period. And here's Mr. Steal Your Girl himself in his first year in America.
Wow.
Just as rough as his outfit is, his start to basketball on the court was just as bad. Because he had just started playing a couple of months ago, so he was still terrible at this point. And so bad that his coach kicked him out of the gym on his first day. And all the kids sat there and pointed at him and laughed. So he ran back to his house and cried, and started to question why he ever came to America in the first place. But eventually all that doubt fueled him to get better and prove them all wrong. And he did exactly that. He quickly became a 5-star recruit, and the buzz really began about him. In just a couple of years, he transformed his game from players laughing at him to being one of the best prospects in the country. He'd go on to play at Kansas, and even though he got injured, would still go 3rd overall in the 2014 NBA draft, and has now worked his way up to being one of the best players in the NBA. But no, comment down below.
That is mental. He started playing properly at 16, so I guess I assume he played here and there occasionally when he was younger, but properly focusing on the sport at 16, that is mental. I know he's one of the biggest stars in the sport, isn't he? And I didn't even know he was from Cameroon. I thought he was born in the US, but that's a really cool little story to end on. I really liked these two videos were crazy, man. God damn, and fair play to all these guys who made it and ended up proving people wrong or coming from the deepest, darkest situation and making light of it, basically. And that's why I like this sort of videos, or these sort of videos, because it's like you come from a dark situation. It's like the light at the end of the tunnel. You see the happy ending, basically. This was a cool video. I might do more videos on this guy. If he's got any sort of things you think I should react to, please let me know, man, because I would be down to see them, man. That's the scary part about Embiid, because he started so late with it. If he started like properly like 10 or even younger, like, man, he would be something else. And he already is something else. He's wild, but that blows my mind that he started playing at 16. That is nuts. Yeah, that John Wall story was touching, man. Oh man, these videos were this was like an experience, man. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, because goddamn, I really did. I wasn't expecting it to be this sort of touchy, but yo, this like makes, again, I've said this like a few times already, but this makes me just appreciate how these players have worked themselves up from where they were to where they are now. God damn. And I'm guessing these sort of stories are also inspirational to people who are in these situations now, hoping to reach the NBA in future, or if it's another sport like the NFL or NHL, just all these sports. But yo, I appreciate the suggestions. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy. Until next time, like, subscribe.